You're watching the Fox 8 10 o'clock news with Neill McNeill, Katie Nordine, and Max Weather Chief Meteorologist Van Denton.
He's outspoken, he's opinionated, he's unconventional, he's controversial.
And he's the person one of the Piedmont's major historic attractions has picked to make it more relevant to 21st century audiences. Frank Vagnone is about to start his 5th month as president of the restored Moravian town of Old Salem. He came here after spending nearly 8 years running 23 historic house museums in New York City. And if you think he's just putting a fresh coat of paint on a bunch of old houses here, think again.
History is a kind of raw material with which we kind of craft our futures.
Frank Vagnone is Old Salem's 11th president, and he's at home here, literally. He even lives in the village's oldest home, the 4th house.
This is the one that first banged my head when I came into the house.
You're how tall?
6'1".
6'1", okay. The fact door frames were built a lot smaller in the 1760s doesn't seem to bother him. He's filled the place with a mishmash of things he's collected and has even turned the front room into his office. When did you first visit Old Salem, and what do you remember about it?
It was when I was a Tar Heel Junior historian, and we traveled up here. I don't know the year exactly, but around that time that we're talking. And I remember the cookies and the maple trees being red and yellow and everything. The
Tar Heel Junior historian was and is an outreach program of the North Carolina Museum of History that encourages young people, like Vagnone here in 1979 as he was growing up in Charlotte, to discover and appreciate local history.
So for me, I had no problem understanding that history was integrated with a future vision.
Today, he's a nationally recognized authority on heritage sites, but his blunt approach to keeping those sites relevant, as outlined in his recently published book, The Anarchist Guide to Historic House Museums, which is now in its 3rd printing, hasn't won him a lot of favors.
I've had people call me a menace. I've had people call me an idiot. I've had people get up and walk out of my lectures. Watch your head.
None of that criticism, though, came from Old Salem's Board of Trustees, which embraced Vagnone's anarchist or going against the established rules approach. And that approach includes putting Old Salem's visitors and their experience ahead of the buildings, collections, and artifacts. Not letting a plexiglass barrier, for instance, separate you from the smells in the bakery.
Here, you go first.
Okay. Or walking into another historic building and not finding a rope chain blocking you from feeling the heat of the fireplace.
And so when you ask me kind of what's anarchist about things, the idea that this is real life, she's really cooking, this is not fake.
Here sweating.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Nor a sign that says, don't touch or lie on the old furniture. Let me play the devil's advocate, maybe the traditionalist argument here, and say, okay, we need the chains to protect the integrity of some of the artifacts in the room. To that you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. But that doesn't mean that the entire room has to be those artifacts, and it doesn't mean that I can't engage that room in different ways.
In fact, engagement's so important to Vagnone, he even lived as the Moravians did one night last fall, preparing a meal in the village tavern and spending the night there with no electricity.
So I was on the rope bed with corn husk mattress with this rug on top of me in candlelight. The whole process is what I got out of it. That Salem is not just a single building, that Salem is an experience, and it always was. And so the whole thing really did feel like community.
And as far as integrating technology with the history of this community?
I will probably make a smartphone app for Old Salem, but what I can provide is this. And there's a kind of stability and strength and consistency to the environment. If you can't engage the environment, you cannot feel a part of it.
Vagnone and his team are examining and critiquing Old Salem's buildings, museums, and shops to see if and how the visitor experiences can be improved, so stay tuned. There are also big plans for Christmas in the works this year. And as for his spending the night in historic buildings, he does this often around the world and then blogs about it on a site he calls Twisted Preservation. For links to that site as well as Old Salem's site, just find this story in the Newsmaker section of our website, myfox8.com.